What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Pastor D back at it with another video. Hey, let's go ahead and get right into it.
Walk it like I talk it, yeah, I walk it. Yeah. Flowers never grow without some water.
So I wanted to do something that I haven't done, in a while. I just want to talk, as I'm praying on tonight, just getting out of prayer actually. Um, you know, there's worship music, that I listen to, and one of the songs that, I had in rotation was Marvin Sapp, Never Would Have Made It. And basically that song, it took me to a place of gratitude and thanksgiving. You get what I'm saying? Because there's often times, in life where we can look at our lives and we can see that things that we were not necessarily supposed to make it through, definitely couldn't have made it through on our own. When I look back at my life, I look at, how God brought me out of so many situations. I made videos, sharing some things, some of my testimonies about how God brought me out of certain connections and friendships and running with certain group of people, and even out of situations where I could have gotten myself in some of the worst predicaments, but God, his grace and his mercy, him being so good, him being so great, so awesome, so merciful, saw fit, to bring me out of those places. I was also reminded of going back to my 11th grade year in high school, man. I remember going out for the football team, and we were doing like some drills, and we were doing these drills, and one of the drills was called a Carolina drill. And it's basically we were, out there playing about, I want to say about 7-on-7 or whatever like that. And I can remember how I remember it is I remember being out there and catching the ball, and being hit low, like being hit while being in the air, being like my feet taken from underneath me and falling, boom, on this elbow. Actually, right here, if you see, you can see all of the scars and stuff like that. But being hit on that elbow and falling on it, and it happened about a couple times, and then I remember going back into the school, and I remember, going down the stairs, and this one, girl at the time that we were kind of liking each other or whatever. We were kind of, horsing around, and she had like not like purposely, but like kind of like pushed me in a way to where I like slipped because I had on football cleats, and I like slipped and I fell, boom, and hit the same elbow again. And I can remember going home, and being tired. So I, took a shower and everything and went to sleep. And I can remember starting to feel like this knot like in my arm. And as I'm asleep, it's itching. And so I'm like scratching in my sleep. I'm scratching in my sleep. And I end up waking up because my hand felt like wet or whatever, and woke up to like pus and blood literally coming out of my elbow, like pus, a lot of pus and blood just coming out of my elbow from the knot feeling like soft or whatever like that. And so I can remember being like going to the hospital, basically being rushed to the hospital. My mom and her friend at the time was like, we got to get him to the hospital. And I remember going to, I think it was, it was in Alexandria, Virginia, but they ended up sending me over to Children's in DC at the time. And from there, they sent me from DC. I forget the hospital exactly where they sent me to, but they sent me somewhere because they couldn't do nothing for me there. And they said that this is something that has to be taken care of now, like, or he could literally die, And so I go back to thinking about even that, near death experience in my 11th grade year, where God graced me, to be taken care of, by this doctor. I can't remember his name, but one thing that I can remember about him to this day is that he used to always wear bow ties. It was this older white guy. He used to always wear bow ties. And to this day, me and my mom, we definitely believe that he was an angel sent by God. But I think about that situation, how even in that moment where I could have been dead, and it was staph infection that I had. So a time where, everybody was kind of losing, their life to staph infection. I want to say this is back in like, this probably back in like 2000. I want to say 2005, 2006 era or whatever. And this was like when a lot of people was we were hearing stories about a lot of people losing their life to staph infection, and coming to find out that I had staph infection, and so I think about moments like that, and I think about even like, present moments and relationships and things that God brought me out of, that could have been detrimental, to my life, that could have been detrimental either by my own doing or even by just being connected, to certain people, places and things. And so as I'm praying and listening to this song, I'm thinking about these moments. And I say all this to say is that there's often times in life where we go through life, and we overcome these things and we just move on with life. And a lot of times we don't really, kind of get into a place to reflect on how good God has actually been to us, on how God has actually brought us out, how he actually, saved us, how he's actually delivered us, how he's actually created ways of escape, when we should have been trapped, when we should have been locked up or dead or strung out on drugs or in worse situations, than we found ourselves in, or just so many things that we could have been overtaken by or gotten ourselves into, that God's love for us that is so amazing, it's so big, it's so merciful, he's so caring, and so it brought me to this place. And like I said, I just want to encourage us that oftentimes, even though we overcome and we move on with our lives, there's nothing wrong with thanking God. There's nothing wrong with remembering just how good God has been to you, especially in those times where you may find yourself going through things and, it may be a little challenging, or you may be in a place of fear or doubt, or like worry, a place where stress may be trying to overtake you, where depression and sadness and all these emotions may try to, overtake you, that in those moments you can remind yourself of just how good God has been. That if he has brought me out of this, or if he brought me out of that, or if he did it for me back then, he can still do it for me now. And so I'm beyond grateful, man. When I look back over my life and I think about the goodness of God, and I think about how he's not only been good to me, but he's been good to my family. He's been good, to us, to constantly provide for us, to constantly make a way for us, to constantly, just show up and always be an on time God. It's a true statement. When the song says, or when people say that he's an on time God, he really is an on time God, because he always shows up, even when you least expect him to, even when you don't even know that you need God the most. God is like, he's always there. That's what makes him omnipresent, omnipotent. You know what I'm saying? Because he's all seeing, all knowing, he's everywhere all the time, and so I just want to encourage us to stay in a place of gratitude. Never forget about the goodness of God. Never think or allow yourself to live so far, ahead in life, that you forget about his goodness, that you forget about, those moments of grace and mercy, that even when you go into prayer, that you don't stop thanking him and praising him for those moments, that you don't give up, on God once you make it out of situations that may not be the best situations for you, but that you continue to stay connected to God, be it in prayer, be it in his word, be it in just spending time in his presence, even if you just sitting there and not saying anything, but allowing God to interpret, your thoughts or your tears, or just your quietness, because God already knows. He knows what we're thinking. He knows what we're feeling. He knows what we're going through. He knows everything, that we are embodying, and so I just really want to encourage us with that. I know somebody out there may need this. Somebody out there may be in a place right now where they forgot all about the goodness of God, where they need to be reminded of the goodness of God, or even where they're even embracing or even experiencing the goodness of God right now, just to tell you to keep going, to keep going and keep circling back to God, keep circling back and thanking him. But I'm reminded, about the story in the Bible, about the lepers, the 10 lepers that were healed, and out of the 10, only one came back and actually thanked Jesus, for healing them. And that's often how we are. We get the healing, we get the deliverance, we get the breakthrough, we get the freedom, we get the things that we want, and then we forget all about God. We forget all about, his goodness and his love and his mercy. We forget all about him and we just go on with our lives, and there's also a quote, I see it a lot, on the internet, on Twitter and everything like that. It says, don't forget God when you get the things that you prayed for. And again, that's just a reminder to just stay in those places, again, of gratitude, thanksgiving, and never forgetting how far God has brought you. Because one thing is true, just like how the song said, when Marvin Sapp said, I never would have made it without you, without God. We can never make it without God. It's impossible for us to make it without God. It's because of him, that we live, move, and that we have our being. So we have to always remember that if it had not been for the Lord, that was on my side, on your side, on our side, where would we be? I don't know where I would be, but I know for certain I wouldn't be here. I know I wouldn't be here being able to tell, this testimony, or even encourage you, or even, just talk about the goodness of God. I know that for certain. There was times in my life, I remember even, and I'll end off with this, but I remember even when I want to say, so it was 2012, so that makes me about 22, yeah, going on 23. And I remember when I moved to New York, you get what I'm saying? And I remember when I got out there, I was so lost. I was so lost in who I am and who I was, and knowing my worth and my value, that I found myself, linking and doing things, that I know I shouldn't have been doing, and one of the things was, drinking heavy, like smoking heavy, and hanging around, people that were basically doing, drugs, shrooms, mollies, doing all of these things that I didn't necessarily partake in. But if it had not been for God, making a way of escape, or getting me out of New York when he did, then I probably would have been strung out on drugs somewhere in New York. And so I even think back to moments like that, where it's just like God, he didn't have to do these things for me, because remember, these are my choices that I'm making, right? These are my choices, my decisions. These are the things that I'm choosing to do. So God didn't have to be gracious enough to bring me out of those places. He could have allowed me to just sink into those places. He could have allowed me to die in those places. He could have allowed me to just lose my way, in those places. But because the call that's on my life and the purpose, that he has attached to my life and my journey is greater, he saw fit to bring me out of those places. And again, I'm just grateful, so I encourage y'all with that, man. Stay encouraged along your journey. Thank God. Being grateful, being thankful is going to take you a long way. It's going to carry you a long way, and it's going to keep you more happier, than sad or miserable or depressed or low or whatever the case may be. It's going to keep you in a better place. The more gratitude you have, the more thanksgiving you have, and don't beat up on yourself, for the choices and the decisions you made. Don't beat up on yourself and get down on you. Don't do any of that. But be glad that God loves you so much that he saw fit to bring you out, because he has better attached to your life and for your life. So I just want to encourage y'all with that, man. I appreciate y'all taking the time out, to watch this video, to be encouraged by this video, and just to allow me to just, kind of express and to speak, but I truly appreciate it. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, do all of that, and let somebody know, hey, come on over and be encouraged by Pastor D, because it's time to be encouraged, get uplifted, and stay inspired. But God bless y'all.
Wisdom is for free, but yet it's overpriced. And I never seen success happen overnight.